When did you realize that maybe this wasn't the best kind of behavior? Because when you're doing it when you're a teenager, you're just, you're in it, right? And there isn't the awareness. So you obviously at some point you had awareness, and how did that come to be?
Well, I don't know when that came to be. Always, it was such a mixed bag. It feels good, and you're hurting yourself.
Right.
Because you wake up the next morning and you're terrified that you've got a bald spot, an inch or 2 inches big that you have to find a way to cover.
Does that hair grow back?
My hair, for the most part, did grow back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It depends on the person, and I'm not a hairdresser or a doctor.
So you're talking, a good inch or 2 inches, that is a bald spot.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because you kind of get in the rhythm of it, and then you're just in it.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a way to calm yourself sometimes when you need calming, but it also can give you an adrenaline rush.
Right.
So,
it's the perfect addiction.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So, well, obviously you've healed yourself, and you do work to help others to heal themselves. So something must have happened along the way. What was that process for you that you came into this awareness?
Well, it was always in the forefront of my mind.
That you knew it was something that had to be dealt with.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 17 or 18 years old, I actually met another hair puller.
How did you know that it was a hair puller?
She told me. She told me that obviously she suspected that I was a hair puller, but I never said anything to her.
How did she know?
She saw the bald spots, or she saw me, in a moment when I didn't realize anyone was there, because hair pullers are way in hiding, and I certainly was
way in hiding.
Right.
Right.
So there's so much shame that goes with it.
I would imagine.
Anyway, she saw me, I guess, and she lived in the room next door in the dorms, and she talked to me about it. And she basically said she had been a hair puller and she had stopped. Now, I don't know if she was able to retain that freedom for the long haul.
Right.
But from the minute she said that to me, and I never told her that I was a hair puller, ever.
Wow.
I never
even after she
it.
called you on it, right?
She was very sensitive about the way she did it. She basically just shared about herself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I never said a word, but from that moment, it was like a seed was planted in my mind, and I just knew I would stop someday. I just knew it.
It's almost like how these, like angels come into our lives. They're people, but they just trigger something, and then we're going on one path, and we turn slightly to go on another. And that's what happened to you.
Right.
Because there would have to be some pivotal event that kind of stopped going in that particular direction.
Right.
So then you were 20, 19 or something.
Right.
And then how many more years till you really could deal with it?
19 years.
19 years.
15 of those years I spent in counseling.
Okay.
And I wasn't focused on the hair pulling all that time. I was working on pain, my own emotional pain, and every now and then I would talk to a therapist about my hair pulling.
But they had no...
They really didn't
There wasn't
know.
a context for that.
Right.
Right.
Right. And eventually a moment came when, for lack of a better way to put it, the universe conspired to push me. And what happened is that I ended up in a whole lot of pain in my life. And
you mean other things going on in your life?
Right. My marriage was very in turmoil for years. And eventually I got pushed to my limit. And in that moment, through a series of things, I ended up U-turning inside myself. I wasn't working with a therapist at the time. In fact, part of what happened was that it was in those days when they stopped paying for therapy so frequently, and the insurance company had cut off our insurance for therapy.
You're done.
Right.
Right, yeah.
I was
oh,
done.
You're not? Too bad. Right.
Right. And so when that moment came when I was pushed so hard into my own pain, instead of looking outside for help, I ended up U-turning inside myself.
So that was the gift of being cut off from therapy.
Such a gift.
Yes.
Such a huge gift.
And then what happened when you turned within? How did you, I mean, it's such a huge thing. It's like climbing, at 20,000 feet without oxygen. And somehow you did that. So
Yeah.
what was that process like for you?
Well, what happened is that I was in terrible emotional pain. I ended up going inside rather than outside, and somehow just following my intuition. And I ended up dropping into what I now believe is a natural system for healing inside of us.
And what does that look like? Can you talk about that?
I can. Yeah, I can. It's hard to talk about because it was so experiential.
And is that part of the work that you do with people? You take them through an experience
Yes.
of their own ability to heal?
Exactly. What I do with people, what I do with adult hair pullers, is I teach them how to U-turn inside themselves and drop just the way I did. And what happened to me is that I was led through a series of lessons, and those lessons, although not linear, took me through a process of self-discovery, self-responsibility, self-compassion, and finally self-acceptance. So
you got to a point where you could take responsibility for your behavior and make a different choice.
Right.
Because when you're in a compulsive behavior cycle, it's very hard to make a choice.
Right.
Because you're just in, it's like the groove, you're just in it's like the needle of the record, for those of us who remember records. It's like in the groove, and how do you get out? Somehow you were able to disconnect from that groove.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happened to me is actually that I experienced in this process a transformational healing journey. It was transformational for me. It wasn't...
Clearly.
Yeah.
It had to have been.
Right.
Because to stop such a... to stop any kind of compulsive behavior, which is a behavior we do unconsciously. We just do it. It is so incredibly hard to do.
Right.
I mean, look at alcoholics. They have a huge, intergalactic system set up to help them every day not drink.
Right.
And here you are dealing with it by yourself,
Right.
basically.
Right.
What an amazing testament to your inner strength. Truly.
Thank you.
Truly. And in fact, I just want to point out, you have lots of wonderful books here, which we'll talk about, but this one, which is Stepping Stones to Success, and there's Abby right on the cover with some big players, but you're the first essay in here, article, and it's really about self-rescue.
Right.
So ultimately, we have to, at some point, say, I am responsible for myself, and am I going to save myself, or I'm going to let myself go?
Right.
Right, and that's what happened to you.
And yes, and what I came to understand is that no one outside of me could save me.
Right.
And for years...
But wasn't that frightening? I mean, was that frightening?
Well, it was frightening, but it was also exhilarating
Freeing.
and exciting because I was finally on a different path than I had been all those years when I was searching outside for answers.
Kind of like waiting, like we're waiting for Prince Charming, which is one of our fantasies in our culture.
Right.
And there's many women, for instance, still waiting for Prince Charming and kind of put their life on hold. When you stop doing that, you stop waiting for an external thing, you just have your own life. It sounds
Right.
like you made the choice to have your own life.
Well, I think what happened is that I must have made the choice somewhere inside before that moment.
Sure.
That I was here to grow, and I wasn't finding a way to really grow and to listen to what the Trichotillomania was saying to me.
So the Trichotillomania really was a message and a pathway to you to, I think what you're talking about is a spiritual growth, coming into your own in the fullest sense of the word. So in a way it was a gift, painful as it was.
Such a gift. I embraced it as a gift. It took me some time to do that. I had a lot of lessons to go through. Well,
that's a pretty evolved way of dealing with that kind of a behavioral issue. So I honor you for that. I mean, that is very hard to do.